Carter, it's Mark. Can you hear me? Never mind.
We're going to get going in just a minute. I'll wait, see if a few more people join us before we get going.
Okay, I'm all ready. Just give me a 5-second warning.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Hey, everyone. Hey, Rich, wanted to say hello to you too.
Hey, Valerie, do we have a quorum? I think you're muted.
I'm here.
1 second.
I think we are, Val, but
Yes, correct. We do have quorum now.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead and start with attendance?
Sure.
Okay, and this is Community Board 2's May full board meeting for 2020. Valerie, go ahead.
All right, great. Thank you. Susanna Aaron.
Here.
Thank you. Akila Ascui.
Here.
Thank you. William Benesh.
Here.
Keen Berger. Carter Booth.
Here.
Katie Bordenaro. Anita Brandt. Oh, she's away. Amy Brenna. I know she's on there. Rich Capolo.
Here.
Ritu Chaudhry. Tom Connor. Coral Dawson.
Here.
Thank you. I'm here. John Paul DeVerna. Doris Diether. I don't know if she's on the phone. Okay. Bob Ely.
Here.
Thank you. Mara Fitzgerald. Cormac Flynn. Joseph Gallagher.
Here.
Susan Gammy. David Gruber.
Here.
Wayne Kawadler.
Here.
Susan Kent.
here.
Janine Kiley.
Here.
Betty Kubovi-Weiss.
Here.
Patricia Laria.
Here.
Michael Levine.
Here.
Janet Liff. Ed Ma. Matthew Metzger. Daniel Miller.
Here, did you get Cormac Flynn? He's in the bullseye.
Got it. Thank you. Brian Pape.
I am here.
Thank you. Donna Raftery.
Here.
Lois Rakoff.
Here.
Bo Riccobono.
Here.
Robert Epstein.
Here.
Sandy Russo.
Here.
Rocio Sands.
Here.
Scott Sartiano. Saw him on there. I'll check that. Shirley Secunda.
Here.
I'm here. Sorry, I was muted. I'm here.
Thanks, Scott. Kristen Shea. Frederica Siegel. Georgia Silvera Siemens.
Here.
Thank you. Dr. Shirley Smith.
Go this way, it's easier than going that.
Chenault Spence.
Here.
Kathy Sullivan.
Here.
Thank
I'm
you.
here.
Eugene Yu. Okay. Susan Wittenberg.
Here.
Anthony Wong.
President Lee present.
Thank you. Adam Zeldin.
Here.
Thank you. And if you're new and I chopped up your name, please reach out to me. I'm happy to get the correct pronunciation for you. Thanks so much.
Did you
Hi, I'm here.
Keen Burger?
Thank you, Keen.
Okay, good.
Great. Thanks, Valerie.
Ritu Chaudhry, also present.
And
Okay, Ritu.
when I said here, sorry.
Got you. Cormac, Ritu, I've got you. And I see Dr. Shirley Smith, who I missed earlier.
I'm
Valerie
here.
up there too.
Thanks, Janet. Got you.
Thanks, sorry.
Do you have me as well?
Yes, Dr. Smith, I have you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you have me?
Yes. Anyone
great.
else?
Thank you.
Well, I spoke with Doris earlier, in fact, a half an hour ago, and she was planning to be on. So
Okay. I'll check for her on the phone call.
it might be a phone call. Yeah,
Thank you.
number.
Hi, it's Susan Gammy. I'm here too.
And I
Thanks,
think,
Susan.
and is that you, Katie, that we have on the phone?
I'm here.
Okay.
Great. Well, Amy and I will also do a scroll quickly in the next 5 minutes and just make sure we grab anyone that we didn't hear audibly. Thank you.
Okay. So we've thank you very much for the attendance. We only have one public speaker, but I just wanted to start off before we jump into that for not being able to figure out a better way of saying this, except by popular demand, we have some restrictions on how we're going to be conducting the beginning of the meetings. As far as for the public session, the public speakers have 2 minutes to speak. Elected officials, the principal elected officials will have 5 minutes to speak. The elected official reps will have 2 minutes to speak. CB2 member questions, we request that they be limited to short, direct questions, no statements, and no ongoing discussion. That hopefully will allow us to get to our business in a little bit more of an expedited fashion. We had discussed this a couple of times in exec, and there was unanimous consent that we would conduct the meetings that way. So without ado, I'm going to move over to our only public speaker, which is Sarah Malaika. I may be mispronouncing your name, from the U.S. Census Bureau. We'll move you up into, let's see, if you could raise your hand, actually, if you're, oh, maybe Sarah's not with us. Oh, no, she is. Okay, there we go. Hi, Sarah, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Good evening, everyone. Hello. Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Malaika. I'm a partnership specialist with the U.S. Census Bureau here in Manhattan. So the 2020 census is now underway. As of today, the national response rate is 59.8%. So about 6 out of 10 households in the US have responded to the census. Here in New York City, we're about 10 points behind at about 49.6% as of today. But the census is still ongoing. It's not too late to respond to the census while being safe and social distancing. People can do that online, by phone, and by mail. I just wanted to update everyone. We have had some operational adjustments due to COVID-19. So we have postponed our non-response follow-up, which is our door knocking operations, until August. So we're not doing any field operations right now. They've been suspended, and we are resuming, assuming that the health authorities give us the go-ahead, we will be resuming our non-response follow-up on August 11th. So we're just right now just encouraging people to respond online at 2020census.gov by phone or by mail. And I just wanted to mention that, this is our chance, this is our one chance this decade to get, the right funding for our hospitals, schools, roads, parks. This is going to be our only chance this decade. So we really want to make sure we get a complete and accurate count of our neighborhoods. And Manhattan has been a little bit lower response than expected. We think that a lot of people are temporarily relocated due to COVID-19. So we're just trying to get the word out that people should respond where they live most of the time, even if they are temporarily not in New York City at the moment. And we're just happy, I'm happy to work with the board, any committee, any business or tenants association or school in the CB2 area. I'm happy to work with you to, develop a census strategy or to get more information about the census tracts in your neighborhood. I'm available and I'm working from home this summer. So Thank you, everyone, and I'll post the census website in the chat box.
Great, thank you very much. I understand Doris is trying to join us. I think Bob is working on that. We're going to move on from our public session. Thank you, Sarah. We'll conclude our public session. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Carter, can I ask Sarah a question?
Sure, Sarah. Sorry, I didn't see that you had your hand up. Got
Sarah,
two questions for you.
Will door knocking go on through into September? I know that we don't know what is going to happen geographically, but it is traditional for lots of people to be away in August.
Mm-hmm. So right now, it's going to be August, September, and October. So we've asked Congress for that 120-day extension. So the last day will be October 31st. We haven't gotten that approval yet, but we're hoping it goes through for that extension.
Thank you.
Sure.
Michael?
Yeah, a quick question. We know that we're much lower this year. Can you tell us, if you know the numbers, how do this year's numbers compare with the numbers a decade ago? Were we doing citywide and how were we doing Manhattan?
Yeah, so we're still behind what what the numbers were at the same time period in 2010. It's a little hard to compare the years because in 2010 it was just by mail, and now we have the online and phone option, so it's a little bit of a different setup. So we're still a little bit behind, but we are forging ahead, and we're doing a lot of outreach, and we're hoping that if people get the word out that if they're not in Manhattan to please count themselves here in the city, that we'll get our numbers up in the next couple months.
Good, thank you. Good.
Thank you, Michael. Chenault, I see you have a question.
In my house, I have tenants who are away in South America and may or may not be back that soon. If they don't respond, do I understand that I will know that somehow to account for that apartment?
Well, we ask that you don't reply on behalf of anyone, but they don't have to be here to participate in the census. They can go online at 2020census.gov and fill out the census for their household in the city.
Oh, we understand that. I'm trying to get them to do it. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's all the questions. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
So that's the conclusion of our public session, and a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Seconded?
Second.
Okay. Agenda is adopted. Now we're going to move on to reports to the public and elected officials reports. I saw Brad had jumped on first again. It's going to be 5 minutes, and I think Susan's going to be timing it, and then for the elected official reps, it'll be 2 minutes. So Brad, are you with us?
I'm with you.
Welcome.
Thank you. 5 minutes. Thanks, Carter. Nice to see everyone. Just a quick report from my vantage point. Things are looking better. Obviously, the numbers of hospitalizations continue to decline. We're now at 5,187. That's down from 5,860 from yesterday. The net change in daily intubations is also down. Thank God, deaths are still dropping, although they've been steady the last couple of days at around 100, 105 deaths yesterday. Total is 23,083. Wanted to give you some updates on Albany. The Senate is resuming actual legislative work next week. I'll be going up to Albany probably Monday or Tuesday. I have some bills that I hope to be on the docket, including bills that would crack down on price gouging, both from retailers who are gouging consumers like me or you, and also suppliers who are gouging the state of New York. And it's going to give the Attorney General new powers to go after those gougers. I'm trying to extend the Child Victims Act for another year because obviously we've been in a pandemic and it's been impossible for claimants to get to court and to file their cases. I'm trying to force the MTA to go 24/7 after the state of emergency is ended. And if they don't go 24/7, if they don't resume that 24-hour, 7-day-a-week service, they're going to have to take a vote on it. Currently, the way the statutes are organized. They don't even have to vote to suspend service like the governor has done. But I think, like me, like a lot of New Yorkers, want to see them back up and running once we defeat this virus. I have bills that I'm working on unemployment insurance, and a new bill that I've run by Bob Ely and Bob Gormley and Carter Booth on alcohol delivery. I want to extend, I'm looking to extend, and would love the community board's feedback, looking to extend the governor's executive order on to-go alcohol delivery, subject to community board input. I introduced legislation today that will do that for 2 years after the expiration of the COVID state of emergency. Again, it's going to require hours of takeout and delivery sales to be consistent with on-premises hours and require community board or either community board or municipal input, depending on what the case is. And then finally, I've got legislation that I hope to see next week on the floor that's going to allow public bodies like yours, subject to the open meetings law, to enshrine the flexibility that we've had to hold these meetings through other means rather than in person. That's my brief report. Happy to take some questions if you want to get in the 5 minutes. Otherwise, the issues that are going to be foremost as I go back to Albany next week with my colleagues are going to be tenants, protecting them from eviction, as well as finding revenue streams that we can tap if we don't get the resources from Washington that Jerry Nadler is fighting for. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. I actually have a question for you. We were just discussing this at Borough Board this morning with respect to the public officers law. I think all community boards in Manhattan are going well beyond what the requirements are as far as including public input and having applicants appear in person. And that's well beyond what the law requires right now. Is there any way to encourage the governor to move a little bit forward on that to require public input in some of the state agencies as they're doing hearings? Right now, there's no opportunity for public input at those meetings. It all has to be done in writing prior.
That's a really great suggestion, and I will look into it. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thanks, Brad. And
not only that, I'll look into it in coordination with Assemblymember Glick. But it's also an issue we can raise on our daily calls that we have with the governor's office, and then we'll look at a legislative fix if they're not willing to make that accommodation. I think it's a really good point.
Great, thanks, Brad. Georgia.
Hello, good evening. I have 2 questions. One is about school budgets. I know that there's been maybe some preliminary conversation between you, Brad, and some of the schools in the district. So I'm curious how much wiggle room there is in terms of the final school budget.
Well, I was at my daughter's PTA where I talked about the fact that the state of New York is facing anywhere between $15 and a $17 billion budget deficit. That's currently, and God knows how that's going to build as this pandemic persists. But we're really looking to Washington for that $3 trillion that Jerry Nadler helped negotiate in the House package. And I think then at that point, Georgia, we're going to have to decide if what we get from Washington is enough to cover our schools. Currently it's not, of course. And then we're going to have to look at revenue from the state, whether it's taxing, the wealthy or corporations, or my pied-à-terre tax that would tax second homes worth $5 million or more that I carry with Deborah Glick. We're going to have to, come up with our own revenue. I'm hopeful that we're going to win the day in Washington, but given the state of things in the Capitol, it's really hard to say.
Great. And Georgia, you had one more brief question.
Oh, yes. It's regarding the delivery, the alcohol delivery.
Yeah.
If you could just talk briefly about the sort of thinking behind that?
Yeah, the thinking is that our restaurants and bars are really on a knife's edge. So many of them have closed already, and they need a leg up. And the only thing that's keeping some of them alive right now are these to-go alcohol sales. So the thinking is that we extend that for 2 years beyond the state of emergency, give them that additional flexibility and revenue stream, subject to community board and municipal, approvals, and try to give them that lifeline that I think so many small businesses need. It's difficult to come up with ways to help small businesses when you don't have any money. And that's kind of the state of play in New York. So this is one regulatory fix that I'm looking for feedback on from the boards. And I think it's something we could do to help restaurants in the meantime.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Susanna?
Hey, Brad, thank you so much for being here. My main question is, if you could you distinguish for me the difference between a moratorium on evictions and a forgiveness of rent? I'm a little concerned. I mean, obviously no one wants to see anybody evicted in this period, but there are people who have financial difficulties and those who don't. And I just worry that it not become a permission to just not pay your rent.
And I think that's right. I think, there's a rent cancel movement that I guess got some attention. I believe personally that if you have the ability to pay your rent, you should do so, or try to negotiate something with your landlord. And I know though that a lot of small landlords have mortgages to pay. So it is a knockdown effect all the way up or down the food chain, however you want to look at it, Susanna. So rent cancellation, I think, is more of a concept than it is an actual plan that's in place. There is a bill that I am a co-sponsor of, that Senator Mike Gianaris carries. But part of that idea was to also provide forgiveness, not just to tenants, but to landlords and their mortgages. That said, you need a funding mechanism. Someone has to pay. So that kind of goes back to the school funding issue. If it's not the federal government, and there's hope that there might, in the House bill, there's actually funding for vouchers for tenants and mortgages. We need to try to win that day in Washington. And if we don't, we got to come up with our own plan here in New York. Senator Kavanaugh has a bill that has a voucher mechanism that could either be funded by the federal or the state government. So that's something I know that the Senate's looking at closely in a special housing working group. But I recognize that there's no such thing as a free lunch, and it's certainly the case when it comes to rent.
Thanks, Brad. And if the following questions could just be really brief questions, because we do have a number of other people.
Need my answer to you.
May I ask a question, please?
I have 3 other people have their hands up. Got Rob.
I can't find my hand.
Oh, it should. If you click on participants, and it should be underneath that.
I will yield my position in the order, because I'm sure Rocio's question is related to Susanna, so I'll go after Rocio.
Okay, Rocio, do you want to go ahead with your question?
Yeah, yes, a couple of things. Number one, not every landlord has a mortgage.
Statements. We're just asking questions.
Yeah, so not every landlord has a mortgage. So how are you going to help the landlords that do not have a mortgage and their tenants are saying that they can't pay and they need us to waive the rent? It's impossible. We can't waive the rent because we have our own expenses. As a matter of fact, expenses have gone up because people are staying home, using more water. The superintendents and the maintenance people have to spend more time cleaning the buildings, the hallways. Therefore, we need that help. That's number one. The other part of the question, the other question that I had is regarding the state liquor license fees that we paid for liquor licenses. Now, everything has been closed. Restaurants and bars have been closed since March. Although we are still paying a very expensive fee to the SLA to keep our licenses in place. So what I'm saying is that there should be some kind of extension of the period of time that we're not in operation, so that those many months should be added to the end of our period.
It's a really good suggestion. We had a hearing on small business concerns this week with the State Assembly. That was not one of the suggestions that was raised, but I will look into it.
Thank you. It's the same way that the Consumers Affairs said they're not going to be taking our money for sidewalk cafes at this point because everything is closed. So that would be something similar. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Robin.
Hey, Brad. So as a member of the Culture and Tourism Committee for the State Senate, I'm just curious if you have any brief assessment, prognosis, update on how you're feeling about how that phase 4 culture, entertainment sector and tourism is kind of going to unfold. That's a big question.
Yeah, no, but you know, I had a meeting with independent theater producers this week, which was interesting. A lot of their concerns are around rent, also unemployment. You know, the unemployment insurance issue has been huge. I hope my office, Jacob Priley's on the phone. He's become an unemployment insurance expert. They've been working 24/7 trying to get claims through the Department of Labor, along with some of member Glick's office too. We've been working together on these cases, but it's a real problem. So it's rent, unemployment insurance, and now the phased in openings. We think that there's some differentiation. Not all cultural groups should be lumped into phase 4, but there's some time to figure that out. For example, large museums like the Whitney could have time ticketing and allow people in smaller groups, no seating, and it's something they actually already do for some of their big shows. So we're going to work on trying to get those moved up sooner in the panoply of openings. But for Broadway and off Broadway, it is an enormous problem. I mean, there's no way around it. I mean, it's that shared experience of a show. Unfortunately, is exactly the kind of gathering that right now is going to be forbidden, and for the near future.
Thanks, Brad. Cormac.
Hi, Brad.
Hi, Cormac. Send me a text.
Okay. Thank you. Now, what I actually wanted to ask about now was, you said your bill enshrined the flexibility, your bill about the committee board and public meetings. I'm really not quite clear on what we're talking about. What?
It's 7 o'clock. It enshrines the whole notion that boards get to weigh in on licenses. So you as a community board, and I sent it to the board to review, would have advisory authority, just like you do with SLA licenses, on to-go components of an SLA license.
Okay, that was the bill you're talking about enshrining this flexibility that we have now. Not the liquor bill that you talked about, not the delivery bill. You're talking about the meetings bill.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're talking about the meetings bill. I was talking about the liquor bill. I'm sorry. Yes, it would enshrine what the governor has allowed through executive order, which has permitted public meetings that are subject to the open meetings law to operate remotely, as we're doing tonight. That's what
emergencies, or as a standard business practice?
In emergencies.
In emergencies. Thank you.
Thanks. John Paul DeBrona.
Through this. My question's about the ability of tenants to use their security deposit by the governor's order. My understanding is that they'll either have to pay back the security deposit or could basically seek a bond or an insurance to cover it. And it's like a non-refundable but reduced cost. A friend of mine was looking for such a insurance broker or bondsman and could not find them. Do they exist in New York? And if your office has a directory of those and stuff?
We could definitely follow up with you. I do not know offhand, but Jacob is on the phone, and we can get your email, or I can give you my email, bradhoyleman@gmail. You can email me if you don't mind.
Okay.
And I'll follow up with you.
Will do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, John. And Rocio, did you had?
Yes, regarding that security deposit, there is a program called Rhino, R-H-I-N-O, I think, something like that, which it's an insurance, and it's available to all tenants. And apparently all landlords are required to accept it. And the tenants do have, either they buy the insurance right up front that will ensure 1 month security deposit be held by the company, or they have the whole year, 1 year, to pay back the security deposit that they used.
Great, thanks. And thanks, Brad, for joining us tonight. Jacob has posted in the chats links to the Senator's Resources Board Report, the Resources Guide, and volunteer forms. So anybody can follow up with those under the chat function. And Deborah, you were the next one to Assemblymember Glick to join us. So I'll let you bring you up on stage. And
good evening.
Susan's got her timer.
Susan, you're doing a great job. It's very clear. And just turn it on. I don't want to cheat. It's been a very busy week, as they all have been. It's great to be with you, and I hope that everyone is feeling good physically, and that your family members are well. That is the number one thing. We started Monday. I went up to Albany to pick up 50 gallons of hand sanitizer. And then I spent Tuesday distributing about 30 gallons of it and masks to various organizations, from West Beth to God's Love We Deliver to the Cooper Square group and Project Renewal and others. So that was Tuesday. That took most of the organizing and the dropping off and connecting with folks. And then yesterday we did I did an interview with Capital Tonight, which is a show up in Albany that on higher ed and the impact of this pandemic on that sector, which is so important to New York and all of the communities in which colleges and universities are located. Especially upstate, but not just upstate. And then I did with the Community Service Society, they have a very important program. If you know people who are struggling with student loan debt, the EdCap program of the Community Service Society does counseling on how to avoid default, how to get out of default. There's a lot of intricacies in the student loan lending arena, and they are terrific. So the EdCap program, which is Education Debt Consumer Assistance Program, it's terrific. And if you need that information, we will get that to folks. And then today, I spent a chunk of time picking up more masks, because I think going forward, until there's a vaccine, many of us will continue to wear masks in public gatherings, especially as there's more opening and more interaction with people. The social distancing is very important, but I think there's so much pressure, and you can see how it's not just some small business folks trying to go after some Democratic office holders. It's just people frustrated, and with the weather getting nicer, it's just going to be difficult. So wearing a mask is key, and hand sanitation is the other part of it, and as much social distancing as we can manage. I think there'll be great social distancing when we finally can go back to get our hair cut, not based on them spacing things out, but it's going to take so long to cut hair that has grown for 3 or 4 extra months. I know I have been doing my own trimming, which is getting to be very unappealing. So in any event, I put in a bill with Senator Shelley Mayer to address the shortfall. We can't count on Washington, though we clearly are, and need them. And it makes total sense for them to provide revenue replacement so we can continue to fund schools, hospitals, and essential services. But we did put in this bill to add another income bracket above $5 million. It's a small increase on income over $5 million, I should say, not billion. And we think it'll bring in a few $1 billion. So that's one idea, as well as the pied-à-terre tax that I have with Brad, although I'm not sure people are buying at the moment in New York in the way we originally envisioned. Obviously, the Department of Labor is overwhelming and all-consuming for our staffs. This is critical funding, and while we had it was a 3.5-hour meeting at the end of last week with the Commissioner of Labor, and allegedly, by the end of this week, a lot of the people who were caught in the gig workers, the independent contractors, who were sort of caught in a catch-22 around being eligible for federal unemployment, the pandemic unemployment, and not being eligible for state unemployment, clearly that created a problem. You had to be denied before you could be eligible. And that just was, hundreds of thousands of people, and it gummed up the work. So allegedly, by the end of this week, people who've been stuck in that since March will in fact see money come through. But if you're having a problem, if you know someone who's having a problem, please call our office. We're working closely with Senator Hoylman's office. All of these, everybody's office, every state office is overwhelmed, and it is 80 to 90% of the time, because you don't just call someone and get some information. There's always a backstory that they feel they have to share because they are so frustrated and upset and angry. So that's kind of all consuming. We're going to be on we're going to have a conference tomorrow. I presume that it will be discussing what we might be doing in the following week. But it's been busy, and I thank you very much for your attention. And it's always a pleasure to see people. I'm so excited to see people. When I pop out of the door and I see a neighbor, we keep our distance, but it's exciting, and that's sort of weird.
Thanks, Deborah. I've got a couple of questions. Michael Levine.
Hi, Deborah. Good to see you also. And thank you again for being with us. It's always great to have you at our meetings. You mentioned support for higher education, and you seem to indicate that the legislature will be considering mostly upstate. I know there are problems with our institutions of higher education here in Manhattan. Some of them, our universities are planning 20% pay cuts, furloughs, reduced class offerings. Do you know if there is any impetus in Albany to provide emergency funding for the universities here downstate? They are really suffering due to lack of registration.
I didn't mean to say that that the state was doing anything. Let me clarify. I spoke about the plight, and I led a letter to our federal delegation asking for a second round of funding specifically for higher ed. There was one round of funding. The dollars were insufficient. Schools are refunding room and board. They are having to provide more technology. And so there are a lot of additional costs. What I was saying was that it was an important part of sector of the economy. And what I meant was in small towns, they are the major employer. So if they go under, that is a major loss to an entire town, which is different from New York. It wouldn't be great if a couple of schools went belly up. I'm not suggesting that's a good thing. The state is not in a position to provide additional resources. That's why we sent this letter saying specifically a second round. In the way there was a second round for small business, there should be a second round for higher ed across the country. And we are also hoping that if the state gets the kind of revenue support that is projected in the bill that Jerry and others have negotiated, then the state might be in a position to be helpful. But at the moment, it's cuts everywhere, and it's desperate.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thanks.
Thanks. And we've got another question from Lois.
Hi, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Can you hear me?
Gotcha.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was just curious if you know how college graduations this month have been handled or will be handled. Is there any creative way that the colleges will be handling graduation?
Those are very individual institutional decisions. I was supposed to speak at a graduation in May. They have moved it till August. I have no idea if that's going to happen. Some of the schools are talking about if they are going to reopen. There is now some discussion of opening earlier so that the semester would be front loaded. They would go from August to Thanksgiving, and then the students would go home and not return until the next semester, so that we wouldn't have students traveling, we wouldn't have students going home and then coming back to the school from wherever they reside. So it would reduce the travel, and it would reduce the interaction of people who have traveled. So that's not a definitive thing. NYU has made a determination that it will reopen in person. I don't believe that no decision's been made, but I think that CUNY is leaning towards an online fall semester. So I think that it's the independent colleges and universities. There's an organization that essentially lobbies for them. They have clearly a desire to want to get back in-person classes, particularly smaller institutions. But graduations, I have no idea.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Assemblymember Glick.
Thank you.
And the next person, Gail,
Yep.
President Gail Brewer.
Thank you. Is this on?
Nice
Thank
to
you
see
very
you.
much. And thank you, Carter, for your input today at the Borough Board, both on opening up the streets or not, depending, and all the hybrid ideas that you had. So that was a really interesting discussion, hybrid on the community boards and how they could open, not just the stores and the restaurants. I'm going to go through some things quickly because after a while, there are so many issues, and hopefully I'll provide something new to people. I think one of the issues, just very small, but the governor has said that religious could have 10 people, but we don't know if it's 10 people per room or 10 people in the entire building. So that's a comment. Second, the nursing homes. The papers today were full of the mayor and the governor going back and forth, but there is somebody at the Department of Health who seems to be grasping at least the ongoing everyday nursing home issues. I think we have 167, some number like that, 189, I can't remember. We've had 1,200 deaths statewide in nursing homes. And I do think that you have quite a few in your board. And I think it would be good to have some discussion with them to see if there's something else that they need. They now have to test twice a week. They're testing residents, I think, every week, but the people who work there are twice a week. and there's a whole new regime in terms of their needs. And I also asked about visitation, because we know that the governor has a pilot now for visits to hospitals, but nobody seemed to know when nursing homes could be visited, understandably, except I'm getting calls from people who are very worried about their relatives. The other thing I want to mention is food will be an issue, I think, for a long time, particularly for the seniors, if not for anybody else. So we continue to have Fresh Direct, working particularly with NYCHA, not in Ward 2, but certainly a need. And on Tuesday night, we have with Columbia University, we've been doing these YouTubes, and we're going to have a discussion with Catherine Garcia at 6:30. Just like everybody else, we have face masks from the mayor, and then we have a generous donor who's going to donate $100,000 to NYCHA. I want to mention just the, you know, the summer is upon us very, very soon, and there are a couple issues. One, of course, is the Summer Youth Employment Program. In talks with the police department, I have to give them credit because we're trying to think of A, how to get funding, and B, projects. And they have come up with some ideas for mapping young people to be able to map the institutions that are helpful to them in the neighborhood. And also, a lot of the seniors at NYCHA are eligible for iPads and have the young people work with them to figure out virtually how to use them. But we do need to come up with more projects and more money for the young people. The schools, you have some wonderful parents on the board, and we certainly know, we don't know what is going to be looking like in September. And talking to the custodians, I find that even they are concerned about what it looks like in terms of cleaning as well as desanitizing. This summer, there certainly is school, but it's all virtual. I don't know what's going to happen in the fall. And we also want to make sure there's a social worker in every single school. We have not been successful. In terms of the future, contact tracing is going to be 1,000 by June 1st, 2,500 by the middle of June, and 5,000 to 10,000 in August. And of course, I think you've heard the way in which it's going to work. Robin asked about tourism. I think that's a topic that needs a lot more discussion because it could be helpful to the businesses. If there are tourists, the general feeling, according to NYC and Company, where I'm on the board, is that tourists will come from the New England down to DC, but no international generally. And there is a big push to try to figure out how even those could be helpful. I think also there are 700 hotels in the city of New York, and only 25 or 30 have any kind of business now, and much of it is the healthcare workers, or you heard about the issues with those who are homeless. I think I just want to conclude by stating that all of the effort, obviously masks, obviously food, and obviously small business, but the effort is, what does the recovery look like? Even something as important as we talked about today in terms of the open meetings law and open streets, and even some kind of seat program, which we've been talking about, and what does it look like for retail? There's a lot of discussion about what does it look like for Macy's? What does it look like for Bloomingdale? What does it look like for any of the big stores in Ward 2, which is different perhaps in the small? You don't want a line outside. You don't want, people are not supposed to be browsing, even in any phase whatsoever, upstate or downstate. The upstate folks, I'm on one of the governor's task forces, and we're trying to look to see what it looks like up there, and how would that compare to the retail or the restaurant in the city of New York when and if the metrics allow us to open. So those are some of the issues. I'm getting a lot of complaints, as you are, about bars doing the wrong thing, gathering, open containers, and no masks. So I'm sure you are also issues to deal with. But thank you very much on so many different fronts.
Thank you, Gail. We've got a couple of questions. Dr. Smith? Shirley, are you there?
Me, Carter?
Yes.
Okay,
You had a question?
thank you. I do have a question. Yes, I had my hand raised. Gail, thank you so much for joining us. Do you know the status of the funding, DYCCD funding for youth and summer employment?
I do. The issue there is the mayor says, I am not funding summer youth employment program. And there was a huge outcry, and to the credit of the individuals in the city council, they said, no, 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 we want to figure something out. And in the city council, having been there for many years, that's an ongoing discussion that will be ongoing until the budget passes. I feel that the city council, despite the budget challenges that we know, will put some money back in. Last year we had 72,000 young people, or 75,000. I don't think we'll have that. So I was just mentioning some of the smaller efforts, NYPD and some of the programs uptown, that are trying to come up with some innovative ideas through private funding or some other places that they could get money.
Thank you.
Thanks. Janine?
Good evening. I have two questions relating to schools. Obviously, I understand how important it is to get the social workers inside each school. Is there a way for smaller schools to share one, or to get money transferred from the Thrive budget to the school, so there's somebody on site who can really know the kids? And then my second question is about discretionary funds. We've heard from, most schools have given out every laptop they have, and they're not expecting to get them back, or if they do, not expecting them in very good condition. And I guess the question is, can schools revise their request to your office and others for discretionary funds, possibly related to technology for this year?
Okay. In terms of the social worker, yes, already now social workers share. And obviously, even having part-time is better than none. The Thrive money, I must admit, I find that it's focused too much on what they call, crisis management, as opposed to sustainable social working. So I don't agree with that model. But we still would like to move some of that money to what you just described, which is somebody who's more permanent, even half-time. We have not been successful, I'll be honest with you. So that's why we keep pushing. But yes, you can certainly share. And there are lots of social workers who are using grad students who are doing that, exactly what you just described. In terms of the allocation of the capital money, we have given out everything this year. Schools will obviously find the money in their budget July 1st. So that might make sense to be able to replenish what has been quote unquote lost or not up to par. Certainly if it was allocated to something else in the school, it's very easy to switch over to technology if people want.
Great, thanks, Gail. And Robin, you have a question, and also if we could just keep it brief, because Senator Kavanaugh is with us and he has to go to another meeting. So I'd like to get him in before he leaves. Robin?
Yeah, just going back, Gail, to you mentioned NYC Go, and as phase 3 and 4 in the city open down the road, are there plans in place or for messaging to national and international visitors to bring them here? Are there plans to connect with travel ambassadors, YouTube influencers, working with the Broadway League, those 200 arts organizations that are on that daily call? I'm just curious, what is the framework now being discussed in order to be ready to go when everything starts to unfold?
Yeah, good question. Well, I would say that the international travelers is not in the immediate future, is the general feeling from NYC and Co on the calls. There is a push to try to get museums, art galleries, and so on in the 3rd phase and not the 4th phase. They're in the 4th phase now. The Broadway, and when I say Broadway, I mean the performance community, is very concerned, sort of off the record, but they're saying it, that they may not be back, although they say fall till March 2021. And so, to be honest with you, that is the hardest hit community. We can talk about other communities that are hard hit too, but in terms of working, they're really in bad trouble. And so I would put them atop of the list of being tracers or other things that can help them in their daily life. In terms of, so that's what I would say, that their Javits is maybe have a couple of shows in the fall, maybe. And the hotels are very concerned. I gave you those numbers. I would say it's not, they're trying everything they can. They have massive come to New York, they're doing branding, etc. But I would say it's very challenging.
Thank you, President Brewer, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Brian, Senator Kavanaugh, are you with us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
All right.
Terrific. Okay, thank you. I'm here, first of all, to offer living proof that Deborah Glick is better at self-trimming hair than I am. But we're all, we all have our struggles. I appreciate the board, meeting and in this format and giving us this forum to discuss all these issues and speak with the public. We're all sort of adapting to new media and new kind of ways of reaching out. I've been, several people have talked about the tremendous effort to get kind of immediate emergency supplies to people. We are very actively making sure people have access to food, especially on the Lower East Side, but there are lots of other places too, obviously, and masks and sanitizers. If anybody does have an institution or an organization that needs some of that stuff, particularly if it's for volunteers who are helping facilitate services for others who are dealing with the public in any way. All of our offices do have access to that stuff and can make deliveries and stuff. So people should let us know. And obviously you have some great elected officials that represent other parts of the board that I don't represent, but just let us all know. We're also inundated with unemployment claims, and we've been, kind of a satellite office, the Department of Labor, all of our offices have. We have pushed very hard for the Department of Labor to change the processes and upgrade their equipment and all. And as Deborah Glick noted, there seems to be some progress on that, although it's obviously it was an onslaught and a lot of people are still not with the benefits they need and are frustrated. I would note that many states have not even begun to really implement the federal emergency assistance. So New York has embraced the process and tried to get it done, but it's still, it's still a challenge. I'm going to talk about housing a little more. I'm the chair of the Senate Housing Committee, and obviously there's a huge kind of crisis there in many people not being able to pay their rent and their mortgages. And that is both a source of great distress for a lot of people now, and also a potential economic problem going forward that might impede our ability to recover and get people back on their feet. So we've been approaching that in a number of ways. First of all, there is a 90-day eviction moratorium and also a moratorium on adverse actions by banks, people who have mortgages. There are different versions of that. Some of them come from federal law and some from state law. But both of those are basically temporary measures that forestall problems going forward. So the governor issued at the urging of particularly Brad Hoylman, who chairs our Judiciary Committee, and I and others, really pushed for a blanket moratorium to shut down the eviction process entirely. That was issued by the governor. It goes through the third week of June, and the governor just recently, last week, extended that, but he did it in a much more limited order. And upon reviewing the language, it seemed positive initially when he did it, but upon reviewing the language, it seems really insufficient. It will allow eviction cases to be filed, and then the new rule is that if you can't pay your rent because of a hardship, then you're not subject to eviction. But of course, if landlords are encouraged to file cases against anybody who has not paid their rent in order to have somebody adjudicate whether they have a hardship, that's going to be an enormous number of cases. So I've directly been urging the governor's office to strengthen that and extend the blanket moratorium. That it is really critical. Otherwise, again, after June 20th, you're going to have a massive influx of cases. And putting aside the economic problem with that, it really still will be a public health problem. Like even in normal times, the housing courts are just mobbed with people, many of whom come from socioeconomic groups that have been vulnerable in COVID. So we really don't want that to happen. Longer term, we need to find ways of addressing the fact that people haven't paid rent and mortgages. So I have a bill that I've been working on with colleagues that would create a structure to pay rent. It's modeled on Section 8. It would deal with anybody who's had an economic hardship that's made it difficult for them to pay their rent, and it would be more generous than typical government programs in terms of paying higher rents that we see in many of the apartments that our neighbors live in and we live in. And it is the concept is to create a program so that New York State can get ahead of it. But in this, as in many areas, we're relying on federal money. So I joined 200 colleagues from all over the state, at all levels of government, and advocates calling on the federal government to put real money into housing. There was not much money in the first round of federal stimulus for housing. And the House Democrats have now passed their version of the next stimulus bill, which is called the HEROES Act. And it has, I'm happy to report, $175 billion for housing, including $100 billion for rental assistance, which is what our ask was in our letter. And some of our New York delegation Congress members were very helpful in advocating for that. It also has money for homeowner costs. So we're trying to figure that out. Meanwhile, I think it would be a very productive step if New York State could put in place the beginnings of a program, and maybe get the program launched in anticipation of a much larger amount of money that will need to come in. On mortgages, we have a bill. Mortgages are most residential mortgages are backed by banks that are not New York State banks. We can get to both New York State banks and also New York State licensed mortgage servicers. So to the extent we have authority over those, we're pushing for a forbearance program that would not only provide forbearance to the end of the current mortgage, but all the way to the end of the, so not just to the end of the forbearance period, but all the way to the end of the mortgage. So if you have 6 months of difficulty paying now, you could get 6 months of forbearance, but your mortgage itself would be extended at the end, so that in month 7, you don't owe 7 months, you don't owe the first 6 months plus the new mortgage. So if your mortgage currently expires January 2030, it would be extended out to July 2030, which is effectively, it would mean it would be such that from the homeowner's perspective, they didn't have a mortgage during this period. We think that's important because, obviously we don't want people having large amounts of unpaid debt coming out of this. Again, there's a bill that does that. That's not something that requires a large amount of federal money. To the extent it is not a state mortgage, though, we need the federal government to act, and we've been working with Congress members on a companion bill that would go through the House. We're also obviously concerned about all aspects of the homeless situation. It has been a crisis for a long time in our city, but it is now also a public health crisis. It is not good for anybody who finds themselves in this situation, but also not good for our general public health efforts to have people living either in public spaces or in congregate settings. So we're also trying to focus on figuring out how to get more people into permanent housing, and obviously focusing on the city's efforts to provide hotel space and other non-congregate settings. I know you have a long meeting tonight, and that was a mouthful, but I think I will stop there. Well, one more just public service announcement. Next Thursday, 7 p.m. we're having another of our town hall meetings. This one is on the question of reopening. We will have public health experts talking about the phasing and what various people will have to do to be ready to reopen. We'll have people from the transit system talking about the challenges of getting transit up and running and how that will look once we get more people riding the trains. And we'll also have somebody who has been on the Governor's Council who's able to talk about local businesses and the various both resources for them and also the challenges of getting local businesses back up and running. So it should be another exciting opportunity to get your Zoom going. And it's again 7 to 8 p.m. and it'll be on our website, and we can get information through the board if people want. So I'll stop there if anyone has questions.
Okay, I've got a few questions. I just want to have all of the other elected official reps on deck. If you could just raise your hands so that we can get ready to bring you forward to give your reports. And just a reminder, those reports will be 2 minutes each. And if everybody has questions for Brian, if you could just keep them brief. It's 7:36 and the meeting's starting to run a little bit long. Just want to remind everybody of that. Georgia.
Yes. Good evening. My question is an environment question, and I'm curious if your office is thinking about any water quality testing in hopes of tracing coronavirus through the water system?
That's a new one for me. Coronavirus, from what again, I don't want to play public health expert here, but coronavirus, as I understand, is quite susceptible to chlorine. I have not heard anybody suggest that the water system itself would be a vector for the disease. But like I say, it's a new question for me, so we'll certainly look into it. I would say, generally speaking, New York City's water system is one of the better managed and safer systems around. But I will. It's an interesting question. I'll look into it.
Thanks.
Thanks, Susanna.
Hi there, thanks for being here. I just wanted to raise the same issue that I raised with Brad earlier, which is this question of threading the needle between a distinction between not getting people evicted, but also not creating a complete moratorium on rent, especially in our district. I worry about small landlords, especially ones who don't have mortgages, but who have still plenty of expenses and property taxes. I worry about consolidation, that a lot of small-time landlords might end up having to sell to larger landlords who have economies of scale and stuff like that. So I just worry. I know we think a lot about vulnerable people and not wanting anyone to get kicked out of the house. But at the same time, and with commercial rent as well, I do worry about the ability of landlords to survive and not have to sell the property.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hi, David. I'm on the Zoom.
like waiting some
Can I
some
call
side
you?
commentary. So I share your concern. I have been pushing an approach that, the cancel rent movement has been very important in terms of highlighting the breadth of the problem, the seriousness of the problem. But I've been pushing an approach that would, especially with, I'm the housing chair, so I focus more on the residential end of this, but I've been pushing an approach that would pay the rent. And if people I've also said to a lot of people, the eviction moratorium is not a rent holiday. If you have the ability to pay rent, you probably should be paying your rent. I know some people, there's been some talk about it being a political statement not to pay your rent in solidarity with others, but to the extent we're trying to persuade our federal colleagues to put money up because this is a crisis, the messaging that some people have money and are choosing not to use it for their rent maybe isn't ideal for that. I would also say that, there will be, we're trying to minimize the consequences for people who really can't pay their rent, but it's going to be harder to help people out who didn't have an economic hardship. So, your landlord does not have the right or the ability to go after you and try to evict you now. And if anybody's hearing about that happening, if landlords are threatening that, we should talk about, ways they can respond to that. But my goal is to pay the rent. Landlords do need the money to pay their real estate taxes, which are going to be critical for local services to continue, to pay their mortgages, to pay their employees, and to maintain their buildings. So a better solution, in my view, if we can get the money, and it is a lot of money, but the kind of money that the House Democrats are talking about would probably be sufficient to do what we need to do. So that's my plan A, is to address that. The commercial thing's a little more complicated because there are a bunch of sources of aid for small businesses, and to some extent they are going to choose how best to use the money to cover their costs and to get themselves up and running. Some of them may choose to use money for switching certain things online or changing their business models. The PPP, the payroll protection program, has a lot of limitations that I think need to be modified. One is you have to spend a large percentage on payroll, 75%, and also you have to hire the people within 8 weeks, even if your city is still shut down. So we might want to figure out how to make aid to businesses more flexible and ensure that if they can pay the rent there. It's not quite the human need as people having an apartment. So I think it is. I think it's a different argument and possibly different sources. But we're looking at that too. But shorter term, I think we're zeroing in on some really good solutions on housing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Katie.
Do you have anything else from me? Yep. Great.
Yeah, I've got one more question from Katie.
Hi, Brian. Katie Bordenaro here. Can you hear me?
Hi, Katie. How are you?
Yes.
Yep.
Katie? Katie, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I can hear you. Yeah,
We
okay,
can hear
good.
you
Are
also.
we good now? Okay. This is a little bit more in the weeds, but Brian, I'm just hoping when you're working on the whole housing issue that you can keep the needs of Mitchell-Lama in there as well. I know it's more niche-y, but we've sent you a number of ideas, and we're just hoping that they stay on your radar as well. I can't hear you.
Sorry, Brian, you're muted.
Sorry, forgive me. Am I better?
Yep,
Okay,
better.
great. Sorry about that. I think I got a phone call apparently that muted. Yeah. So Katie, you know, we've had this longer term conversation about a variety of Mitchell-Lama issues. We're focusing particularly on responses to COVID right now. Some of the stuff, certainly the stuff we're talking about with respect to renters would be direct assistance to residents of Mitchell-Lamas that have difficulty paying. It also, most people call what co-op residents pay maintenance, but technically for most people it is rent on a proprietary lease. So to the extent we're talking about rent, we would also be helpful to those folks. There's a lot more to talk about with respect to Mitchell-Lamas, and we do have a package, and that was a top priority this year before COVID, but we will get back to that as well with other issues and concerns, but I appreciate the question.
Okay, Rocio, do you have a brief question?
Thanks for Brian.
We're really running late here.
Great, thank you.
Yes, good evening. I manage a few buildings, and some of these buildings have a commercial entity, a retail space on the first floor. And none of my commercial tenants are paying the rent. So I am owed lots and lots of money. I can't make ends meet, especially because the rents on the apartments that are above, many of them are regulated rents, which means $300, $400, $500. And if I don't get my money from the commercial tenants, which I'm not getting, I haven't been getting them for a few months, how am I going to survive? What are you going to do for us? What are you going to do for the commercial tenants so that I know that PPP, 75% goes to payroll, but the other 25 goes to rent, utilities, and other expenses. And we, as restaurateurs, also have only 8 weeks to use up the money. So changes need to take in effect right now to save so many of the small businesses, mom and pop businesses that are suffering as a result of what's happened. No fault of our own, but so we need help. Yep. This is more of a comment than a question.
And let me
Brian, we lost you again there.
It doesn't say.
You're back. You're back. Yep.
It doesn't say I'm muted. I don't know what's happening. But yeah, just to respond briefly, I agree that we need to be more focused on what is going to be actually useful for small businesses. I did join colleagues in writing to the heads of the federal legislature and the White House to say that this PPP program is unduly restrictive in a way that will prevent it from serving its purpose. We think that there should be an extension of time for people to use this money. Right now, there's an 8-week thing, and if you don't use it in that time, it converts from it basically becomes a loan rather than a grant. So we've asked people to extend that to give people more flexibility for how to spend it. And there's going to need to be another round of stimulus from the federal government. Unfortunately, the state budget is deeply in the red for the same reasons lots of businesses are in the red. People are not able to pay their taxes. We're not getting the revenue. We're not getting sales tax revenue we'd expected. We're not going to get income tax revenue we expected. So in order to keep the state government afloat, we are going to make some tough choices already. The federal government has an ability to do major spending, deficit spending in a crisis like this. So we have been advocating for additional resources for small businesses. That is the most direct route to addressing the problem. And again, I agree that the current programs are unduly restrictive, and we're working on it.
Great. Thanks, Senator Kavanaugh. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And now we've got a number of the elected official reps. We're going to start with Patrice Comerford from the Speaker's office. Let me promote you to panelist. Give it just a second for that to jump in. Are you with us, Pat?
go. I think I unmuted
All
myself.
right, there you go. Yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll be very fast. I know it's getting late. I just would say that the City Council is still continuing to do their meetings virtually over Zoom. So you can go to council.nyc.gov and you can see the schedule for the public meetings. You can also get information on the most recent legislation, including the relief package for small businesses. I won't go into what that is because we don't have time. We are also giving out pantry boxes and lots of them, lots of food, lots of masks. We have plenty of them, just like everybody else. If there's any particular buildings, and we're giving them to the smaller buildings too, we'll deliver them. Let me know, and we'll send some to the smaller buildings. We also are going to be in Abington Square next Saturday from 12, that's the 30th, from noon to 2, giving out masks. So we'd love to see some of you if you're around that day. We're also still doing our virtual housing clinic on the second Tuesday of each month. And the next one will be, our great volunteers will be on from 4 to 6 on Tuesday, June 11th, our volunteer lawyers. And I think that's all I have to say. I'll put I'll put something in chat, our latest e-blast.
Great, thanks. Luke Wolf from the Controller's Office.
Hi, everybody. I know I'm on the clock, so I'll keep this brief. I'm Luke Wolf from Controller Scott Stringer's office. The first thing I want to discuss, a few quick highlights, is one, we launched an investigation into the city's handling of the coronavirus last week. It was announced this morning in the New York Times that one estimate showed we could have saved as many as 17,000 lives if we made decisions just a week earlier. So we've requested all the documents and information from the city's early response, so from November through mid-March. So we know that if a wave 2 comes or whatever happens next, we know what decisions we made right and wrong and kind of how all those decisions were made. So we're going to launch a full investigation, of course, not interfering with the city's response, but making sure that we know what happened so we can be best prepared going forward. Number 2, we released our budget analysis recently, and this morning the comptroller testified in front of the city council. We are estimating a $8.7 billion budget gap, which is, of course, a terrific number, tremendous number, and really unprecedented, and it's twice as deep as the Great Recession. And we are expecting over 900,000 people to be unemployed, which is horrible, which is 1 in 4 New Yorkers. And we really, as so many of the elected said, need the federal government to step up and help plug that gap and make sure that city services do not get cut going forward. The other big thing we are focused on is food access. So 30% of all food banks across the city have been, food pantries across the city have been closed. And we're particularly hearing a lot of complaints about the quality and nutritional value and diversity of the food that is being given to New Yorkers. So we sent a letter today with some specific recommendations about how the city can improve food access. As the borough president said, we anticipate this to be an issue for the foreseeable future. So we want to make sure that all New Yorkers, especially our seniors, are getting the food they need. One last thing on census, I checked this morning in CB2. Out of all the tracts in CB2, only 3 are above 50% and none are above 55%. So really implore everyone to fill out the census, make sure that everyone you know does. We all know how important it is, especially now when we need resources more than ever.
Thanks, Luke. Now we have Anthony Drummond from Councilmember Chin's office.
Good evening, everyone from CB2. Just a few points of announcements here. You know, I'm under the clock as well, so I'll try to condense as much as I can. So first thing, today at the City Council's Women Caucus issued a statement denouncing the recent derogatory and misogynistic remarks by the SBA President Mullins against the DOH Commissioner Barbat. So I'm actually going to send a link of that statement, the full statement, in the chat box, but just wanted to mention that as with the city going through the COVID response, particularly attacking a woman of color in leadership, that's been an issue there. So we want to get that statement out to you all. Next in regards to food, Councilmember Chin, as I spoke to about last month, and again, going on this month has been continuing her call for quality and reliability for food service, particularly the Get Food NYC delivery program, especially for seniors. We've been hearing a lot of complaints as well about food not reaching people's doorsteps, non-kosher meals being sent to kosher clients, spoiled produce, etc. So the council member has been doing a lot around in that area. And also, Councilmember Chen has maintained for senior services and nonprofits for senior meal delivery. The city is successfully run, the city has already successfully run a program by the Department of Aging, the home delivered meals programs, which focus on homebound seniors and people with disability. And then also, in case you all didn't get to see the council member yesterday on NY1 on Errol Lewis, she's been leading the fight, calling for $26 million in additional funding for the program. She's been a big fighter for that and spoke about that heavily. And this morning, the mayor announced that he's going to be improving the quality of senior deliveries. But in addition to that, we also need your help in helping to get the seniors that are in need for meals. Whatever information you can provide, that will be very useful and helpful for our office. We know there are a lot of food programs out there, and sometimes that can be confusing. So that's why our office created the Food Access Guide. I will provide those links for you guys in the chat as well. With the various programs such as the free grab and go meals, Get Food NYC emergency delivery, and again, the homebound meal delivery program. And the last comment I will mention, I know there was quite a few questions that came up with Senator Kavanaugh around the issues with property owners and small property owners. Councilmember Chen authored a letter that was sent to the mayor last month that pretty much spoke to that very same issue. The issue with small property owners and receiving tax relief, emergency subsidies, and so forth. So our office has definitely been involved in terms of like making sure this issue is addressed, because we're hearing it too from small property owners. Just a few things, like a couple of points I'll just mention very quickly, like providing emergency subsidies for small property owners that will cover utilities, water, and sewer bills, especially since shelter in place has spiked those costs, and we know those costs are going up. Temporarily suspending the commercial rent tax program, commercial rent tax payments for small businesses on these properties. So those are like the couple of few things, and we're even supporting the state legislation to fund emergency rental assistance that is being authored by Senator Kavanaugh to expand funding for HRA's rental vouchers program. So those are a few of the things that we called for in the letter, but there are many others. So we are definitely in support and making sure and addressing these issues as relate to small property owners as well. All right, that's it for me. Hopefully I covered it. If there are any questions, please let me know.
All right, thanks, Anthony. I see that there's two people who have their hands raised. Georgia?
Hi, my question is for, oh, now I can't find the folks, but I guess for Patrice going to, and for
Okay, well, she's already spoken,
Anthony,
and we will have to move on because it's almost 8 o'clock.
Oh, well,
Pat
so I
already
guess I'll
spoke.
direct my question to Anthony. My question is about the mayor's cancellation of the New York City Organic Waste Program, and what is Council Member Chin's position on that program?
Of the cancellation of the organic waste?
Yes, the organic waste pickup.
Okay, I'm sorry, because my internet connection was going in and out. I'm sorry. Cancellation of the organic waste program. Let me for the in terms for the organic waste, I know the council member is definitely in support of saving it and keeping that program going. she has been very vocal about that and keeping that the organic waste program still operating. So she has been in support of that.
Great, thanks, Anthony.
Can you hear
Keela?
me? Okay, so
Yeah, we can hear you. Keela?
Okay, sorry.
There we go. Hi. I had a quick question from our office about the rat and rodent problem in Soho, Lower Manhattan. There have been a lot of people dealing with rodents that are now like kind of invading our living spaces, and they're especially on in Soho and also on the other side of 7th Avenue, which I think is Corey's office. But I was wondering if there has been any response to that or what the plan would be around rodent abatement.
Rodent abatement. Let me actually, Keila, let me get back to you on that. I'll definitely look into that exactly. I know we have been receiving a few, I've received a few comments about just issues with rodents, especially with trash being a big issue as well, and being dumped around, that there's been seeing an increase of rodent population. So I've made note of that, and we'll definitely look into that for you. Okay.
Keila, are people making 311 complaints on that? Because usually they've in the past they've been very responsive.
I believe so, but it's been a big problem on the other side of 7th Avenue, especially the blocks that are around Trader Joe's.
Right. Yeah, I know. It's because if people make the 311 complaints, that they do go out and bait and actually do address that. And I know they've made appointments with neighbors over there in the past, but people really have to be making the 311 complaints in order for that to happen, because they do track that information fairly closely.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Anthony. Iraq Sahansky from Council Member Rivera's office. Welcome.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be super brief. First of all, we continue the efforts to bring food to the people who are the most in need. So if you know anyone who might be homebound and might have any food, needs, please refer those to me. I'm going to leave my email there. We'll make sure to get whatever we can, and as we have some donations from nonprofits and also from other parts of the government. Additionally, the councilwoman, chair of the hospitals committee, chaired a hearing on contact tracing last Friday. Unfortunately, it was sort of a mess. We came to realize that, the decision on putting the contact tracing on H&H instead of a DOHMH, like they've done in the past with other, pandemics, whether it was in the HIV/AIDS situation, influenza, and others. We came to realization that the agencies are not speaking as often as we think they should be. It was unfortunate. The councilwoman jointly with Mark Levine, who's the chair of health, and the state assembly and state senate on the health committees, put out a statement that I'm going to leave here for you all. Just saying that it's a shame that the mayor is not coordinating, or the team is not coordinating us properly, in our response to effectively combat COVID-19. Other than that, we keep having hearings online. I'm going to leave my update on a link, so please sign on to the newsletter. We send 3 newsletters a week with the latest updates. And that's it. If anyone has questions, I don't want to extend myself too much. I know I'm at 2 minutes right now.
Thank you very much. I don't see any questions, so I'm going to move on to Claudia Zhu from Yuling News Office. Assembly Member Yuling News Office. Claudia, are you with us?
Yep. Good evening, everyone. This is Claudia from Assembly Member News Office. A few quick updates from our office. This month, the Assembly Member have participated in 2 public hearings. One was on the federal response to the economic impact of COVID-19, and the second one was on the disproportionate impact of COVID on minority communities. The Assembly Member continues to highlight the economic devastation for our community and the importance to advocate for federal funding as well as additional resources for our residents who are really trying to get through this difficult time. The Assembly member also joined into the conference meeting with the Department of Labor's commissioner. Some of the concerns that we relayed to the commissioner includes delays in the claim process, incorrect denials, technical difficulties on the system, as well as the inconsistency with the distribution of funds. This has been a very stressful and frustrating process for our constituents, and we have asked DLL to continue improving their system, as well as increasing staffing so that the callbacks are done in a timely manner. Like others have mentioned, please do continue to reach out to state elected offices for assistance on DLL cases. And one last mention, the Assembly member is continuing her weekly Friday night webinars. Tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. will be week 3 of our RISE Asian Pacific America Town Hall. Please visit riseapa.org to register, and we welcome everyone to join in on the discussion of relief and recovery for our communities. I will be sending a link to our board report in the chat box, and please feel free to access it for more information. And with that, thank you everyone and have a good night.
Great, thanks, Claudia. And then the last speaker is Jacques Brunville from the Attorney General's office. Is that correct?
Hi, this is Jacques Brunville. It's actually the Manhattan District Attorney's office.
Excuse me. Yes, District Attorney's office. I apologize. Go ahead.
No worries, no worries. Cy Vance just wanted to send a couple quick notes. First, letting the community know that all of our court sessions are now virtual, and with that, all of our victim aid services are also on a virtual basis. So we definitely encourage folks that, excuse me, that may be experiencing any issues related to domestic violence to, first of all, if there's any emergency, to immediately call 911, but they can also reach out to our DA hotline at 212-335-4308. We also have a link for victim resources that I'll share in the chat box, which includes a wide range of different hotlines related to hate crimes, elder abuse, domestic violence, and more, along with some additional resources that correspond to that issue. The other thing is last week, the US Supreme Court in the case of Trump v. Vance began its session, which addresses the general question of whether the president is immune from even investigation of his corporate entities and associates while he is president for conduct that occurred while he was a private citizen. We encourage residents to just kind of stay tuned to that Supreme Court case. And the last thing is, for more information, just to generally stay updated, we encourage folks to follow our Twitter page at Manhattan DA, and I'll include my personal contact and email in the chat box as well. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So that concludes our elected officials reports. And now we're going to move on to the chair's report. So in the last month, we've had, there are 2 current open streets in our community board, Little West 12th Street, a very small section, and the block north on West 13th Street have been closed on Sunday. University Place and a portion of McDougal Street are going to be part of the Open Streets program, which the Village Alliance and the Washington Square Park Conservancy will be running. There are a number of other applications in from a number of different community groups. And I think they're working through getting some of those approved. I know Jones Street is one of them. The Hudson Square bid has a number of streets that they've submitted, and there are a few other community groups have submitted applications as well. The criteria is a little bit strenuous, but I think that's people are working through that. We're going to be putting a new working group together to look at open air dining. We have a very diverse community board, so there's a lot of different options for different types of outside dining that differ from a lot of the other community boards in Manhattan. So we're going to take a look at some of the parameters of what we'd like to see that might qualify for considerations. There are a lot of different things that are being looked at, but what our general criteria are for what we would as a community would like to see. This is particularly important since we have so many restaurants and sidewalk cafes. I think we have the most sidewalk cafes of any community board. And we really want to be able to support our eating and drinking establishments who will most likely, when they're allowed to be reopened, to have no more than, at most 50% occupancy, perhaps less. We want to be able to afford them an opportunity of having significant outdoor seating in a way that would be meaningful to contribute to their income and help bridge the next few months and till things move on to whatever our new normal will be. The working group is going to be chaired by Valerie De La Rosa, and the members are going to be Dan Miller, Bob Ely, Donna Raftery, and Joe Gallagher. The community board website is Josh Thompson, our assistant district manager, has been working on updating that, and so that should be coming soon. Some changes there. We will be having our board leadership training, which was previously scheduled for March, which we had to delay with the onset of all of our new normal. That's going to be next Thursday on May 28th at 6:30. Hannah from the group Forward is going to be running that. Again, just as a reminder, it's something that I'd hope that all the committee chairs and vice chairs, as well as the executive committee, do attend, and board members are welcome to attend, but it's not required for other board members. Bob's going to follow up with an email just to get RSVPs, just so we have a sense of who's coming. Valerie has pointed out to me as she's looking through all the board memberships that we have at least 5 generations on our board with the addition of our new members, and so it's a pretty broad group of people. The executive committee had sent a letter to the governor requesting that the western lane of West Street and 9A be set aside for bikers, and the greenway for runners, and the rest of the Hudson River Park for walkers. I think that's attached as the last letter in the package, the board package that was sent out to everybody. Tonight, the Empire State Building, the Washington Square Park Arch, and other locations are going to be lit in green. I believe it's tonight, to celebrate park workers, who we don't often think about it, but they're essential workers in making sure our green spaces are available. I know for those of you who are here, I'm sure many of you have spent time in the parks. It's really something that makes a huge difference in right now to our, at least to my daily life, I'm sure to many others. You heard that it appears NYU's on track for some variation of in-person classes. That's incredibly important to our local economy. That's one of the biggest employers and brings a lot of people. That's something I think that really going to make a big difference, and it's nice to hear that they're making a commitment to doing that at this point. I think that'll be very welcomed by our local businesses. Wearing face masks is an ongoing issue. I was speaking with another board member today, and we were discussing it, and he had mentioned that somebody else has said, the best way to address this issue is to lead by example and wear a mask, and that the more people are wearing masks, the more comfortable it will be for other people to wear masks, and that's really important as the weather's warming up. I want to welcome our new board members again. Akila, I don't know if you want to just say hi. Some of our board members weren't here.
Hi, thank you. Happy to be here. Thank you so much.
All right. And then we had with Betty as well. Betty, are you with us?
Yes, hello, hi.
Betty is a high school student. She's one of our new members. And Eugene, are you, I saw you, oh, there you are. I can't hear you, but all right, let me shift over and I will unmute you. Let's see, sorry. And somebody else unmute. Eugene, where are you? I've got all these.
Hey, I think I'm unmuted now. Hi.
Okay, great. Eugene and John.
Hi, everybody. Look forward to helping out.
And William. Oh, let's see.
Hi, everybody.
Great, thanks. So we've our 5 new board members. We're going to have our official board training before our next executive committee meeting on Tuesday. And we should have some committee assignments by the end of the month. I know a lot of you have been attending different committee meetings, so that's really been great. It's been nice to see you participating, and some of you have been speaking, so that's really been good. One of the one of the other things that we started at Borough Board today is, even though I think it's an incredibly long way off, but it was alluded to, is the discussion of what community board meetings might look like in the future. And that's why Brad's bill is sort of some hybrid meeting models is really important, because I don't think many of us are really comfortable anytime in the near future meeting in any large groups. But, you know, obviously at some point that's going to have to evolve in some way, shape, or form. And hopefully the technology that we've been using can be a part of that in some way, shape, or form. So that's all I've got. I'm going to turn it over to Bob, your district manager's report.
All right, thank you, Carter. Before I start, let me just forewarn everyone. I've been having some issues with my laptop. I keep bouncing back and forth between gallery view and speaker view, and twice I've lost, my audio has been disconnected. So if anything happens, that's probably the reason. I've got about a half a dozen agency reports or announcements. First, I'll start with the Department of Transportation. They've released their second quarterly report pertaining to the 14th Street Truck and Transit Priority Project. The report analyzes data from January and February. Specifically, it tracks the performance of bus activity, vehicle speeds and volumes, bike and pedestrian volumes, and curbside activity. Some of this information is information they probably would have made if the pandemic hadn't hit us, and they would have been coming to one of Shirley Secunda's committee meetings. Secondly, the Department of Design and Construction has once again started working on the water main installation on West 3rd Street and all the streets between West 3rd and Washington Square South, and between McDougal and LaGuardia. They had stopped working sometime in mid to late March for, I guess, 6 or 8 weeks, but they're back at it now. But none of the work they're doing currently will result in any water shutdowns for residents or any of the businesses there that are still open. As Georgia mentioned earlier, the Department of Sanitation has suspended the organics collection program through June 2021 due to budget cuts, we were told, or I was told. And I think Rocio might have mentioned earlier, the City Council has passed legislation waiving all sidewalk cafe fees into 2021. Con Edison has sent me an email saying they've suspended all meter readings. And I want to, lastly, or maybe penultimately, remind everyone that June 23rd is the New York State primary. And the state has made it easier to vote by mail, to vote by absentee ballot. If you apply for an absentee ballot, you can just check on the box that says temporary illness. The definition of temporary illness has been expanded to include anyone who has the potential to contract the coronavirus, which I guess that's all of us. If you go to nycabsentee.com, you can apply right there. And lastly, just individually to Akila's earlier point about rats, the rat and rodent issue. Akila, if you want to give me a call tomorrow, I have a Zoom meeting at 9:30, but if you give me a call maybe at 12 o'clock or after that, I can give you a little more information about how maybe we can get some focus on the issues over there.
Yeah,
right.
thank you.
Okay, that's it. Done. Just lost the audio.
Michael, do you have your you have your hand up? Do you have a question?
Yeah, oh, sorry, Brad. I had Carter. I had a question for you about the working group meeting on opening the streets. Shirley Secunda and I were at a Village Alliance bid meeting this morning, and we mentioned the working group, which was very welcome to the board member, to the executive committee of the bid, but they're working on their own proposals and ideas for guidelines for service on the sidewalks and the streets. And I'm just wondering, Carter, have you reached out to the bids in our community board district to make sure that they're all aware of the meeting and if they can attend as well?
Yeah, well, anybody can attend. Of course, all of our working group, like all committee groups, are open to everybody in the community to attend. You know, the vast majority of our businesses are not in bids. That's what bids jobs are, to do that and propose that function. I mean, we're a huge community board. We have villages to major avenues. You know, we have small streets. That's why we really wanted to take a leadership position on this, because we have such a diversity. Most community boards are just strictly on a grid system and don't have a lot of the opportunities and options that we do in our board to really support local businesses and to do it in a very creative fashion. And so that's, you know, we're going to invite the bids, but the bids are generally, you know, they have options of things that they can do as well. but the vast majority of our businesses in our community board are not in bids. Even though we have 7 different bids here, they really only represent a fraction of the area at this point, as far as the existing businesses. So, you know, that's generally the bids are already organized in many fashions. That's why the Village Alliance is closing down for the Open Streets program. But the Open Streets program is not outdoor dining. It's a very separate issue, just to be clear. And it's not really something that would necessarily coexist in all areas to really get the amount of seating that we need for restaurants to really make money and survive. I mean, we're not talking about 3 tables and 6 seats outside. We're talking 10 tables, 20 seats, or even more than that for larger restaurants. I mean, they really need to have a significant amount of seating outside to make their businesses work on Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays. You know, it's a very different time that we're in, and we're not having, no tourists are coming anytime soon. You know, the seating has to be inviting for our local communities, you know, and the people who are here to really come out and eat, you know, and so that's really important that we look at all the options that are available there to really make this happen. I mean, the numbers are staggering when you listen to the, you know, experts, whether they're self-appointed or not, of how many businesses are expected not to succeed. So we want to make sure that enough can try and see how it goes forward for them. So that's, sorry, my screen also is jumping around. Rocio, did you have a question?
Actually, I have a comment regarding the Con Edison meter readings. I suggest that everyone, if they can, read their own meters and send the photographs to Con Edison. This way, first of all, you won't get an estimated bill. And number 2, you won't get a huge bill when they finally do read the meters, because it'll be harder to pay a huge bill than if you pay in increments of whatever it is your consumption. So I think it's a good idea for everyone to think about that and actually do it.
Great, thanks. So I think that's, I don't see any other hands up, so we're gonna move on to the business session. We are not gonna be approving the April minutes because they have not been sent out to you from what I understand, so we will vote on that next month. We're gonna move on to the standing committee reports and other business. We're actually gonna take, we're gonna do the, I guess we'll want to propose that we do a block vote at the end, but we also should be taking attendance now. So I just want to put a motion forward that after the quality of life committee resolution, which we will do a roll call vote, that all other resolutions we move into an omnibus vote. And if anybody would like to call something out as we're moving along, they're certainly welcome to, and we can have a separate vote, but in the interest of time, we can just move each committee's resolutions into an omnibus block and then vote on that at the end. Is everybody in favor of that? Can somebody second?
Second. I second.
All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, so I don't hear any opposition, so we're gonna move to Joe. You had one resolution. Are you with us, Joe?
Yes, I'm here. How are you?
Hey, Joe.
How are you? Hi, everyone.
Good.
Carter, does everybody have the package, or do you need to screen share the package?
The package was sent out to everybody.
Yeah, I have it, but I just want to make sure that you don't need to screen share.
Yeah, I think, you know, sometimes I think people like to see each other as we're discussing this instead of the just the screen shares. I don't know if people want it, we can discuss that executive if people don't like that. But go ahead, Joe.
Okay, so we just had one application. It's Blue Bottle Coffee for application for revocable consent to operate an unenclosed sidewalk cafe for Blue Bottle Coffee at 2 Astor Place between Broadway and Lafayette Street, with 3 tables and 6 chairs. And we didn't have a quorum, so this will be put on the floor as a recommendation to be adopted. We recommended approval for this application unanimously.
Would somebody like to second that, putting it on the floor?
Second.
I second it.
Okay, is there any discussion on Blue Bottle Coffee Inc. at 2 Astor Place for 3 tables and 6 chairs? All right, I don't see anybody wanting to discuss that. Is there any objection to voting? Okay, we're going to do this as a roll call vote. Valerie, want to go ahead and read out the roll?
Great. Thank you. Let me just pull this up. All right. Susanna Aaron.
Yes.
Okay. Akila as Kui. Okay. William Benesh.
Yes.
Is that a yes for you, Akila? William Benesh.
Yes.
Keenberger.
Yes.
Carter Booth.
Yes.
Katie Bordenaro.
Just make sure Katie's not muted here. Katie, can you hear us?
Now I can. Yes, yes, I'm voting yes.
Thank you. Rich Cacapolo.
Yes.
Ritu Chaudhry. Okay. Tom Connor. Coral Dawson.
Yes.
Valerie De La Rosa, yes. John Paul DeVerna.
Yes.
Valerie, sorry, this is Ritu again. Did you get me?
I did not get you.
Oh, I voted yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. Doris Seether.
Yes.
Thank you. Bob Ely.
Yes.
Mar Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Cormac Flynn.
Yes.
Joe Gallagher.
Yes.
Susan Gammy.
Yes.
David Gruber.
Yes.
Wayne Kawadler.
Yes.
Susan Kent.
Yes.
Janine Kiley.
Yes.
Betty Kubavi Weiss.
Yes.
Patricia Laria.
Yes.
Michael Levine.
Yes.
Janet Liff.
Yes.
Ed Ma. Maud Marin. Matthew Metzger.
Yes.
Okay. Daniel Miller.
Yes.
Brian Pape.
I vote yes.
Donna Raftery.
Yes.
Lois Rakoff.
Yes.
Thank you. Bo Riccobono.
Yes.
Robin Rothstein.
Yes.
Andy Russo.
Yes.
Rocio Sands.
Yes.
Scott Sartiano. Shirley.
Yes.
Thank you, Scott. Shirley Secunda.
Yes.
Thank you. Kristen Shea.
Yeah.
Thank you. Frederica Siegel. Georgia Silvera Siemens.
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Shirley Smith.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep, I got you. Thank you. Chenault Spence.
Yes.
Thank you. Kathy Sullivan. Eugene Yu.
Yes.
Susan Winberg.
Yes.
Anthony Wong.
Oh, yeah.
Adam Zeldin.
Yes.
Okay.
I see that Kathy, can you unmute yourself? Let me just check because she signed in. Kathy,
I'm
are you
here.
with us?
I am here.
Okay. So you're voting
It
yes?
says I'm muted.
Yeah, well, you can
I'm
unmute
voting
yourself.
yes.
Okay.
So that's 45 yes.
Val, you didn't call my name on the yes. Amy.
Oh, sorry, Amy.
That's okay. No problem.
Thank you. I marked you down. Okay, got it.
And I've also see Frederica is on and she did not vote. Frederica, are you with us?
Yes, I did vote.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Okay,
I did.
got
Thank you, though.
That's 46 yes.
Okay. Great. Thanks. All right. So we've done that. Now we're going to move on to landmarks. Chenault. Chenault, you're muted. Unmute yourself.
I hit it twice. We have resolutions. The second one was laid over or canceled or something. First is 186 Sullivan Street. application to add a rooftop structure to an existing 3-story townhouse. This is at the northeast corner, roughly, of the McDougal-Sullivan Gardens. And it, if I'm not mistaken, was the first landmarked thing in our district. And we took special note of the character of it and its pristine donut and the visibility of the donut. The recommendation is to approve it, and that the commission should take great care to see how it lies within the donut, and that it is in general in sympathy with the existing other houses on that complex. It was unanimous. 29 East 11th Street took the front stoop and surround. The front is one that the stoop had been shored off and some detailing removed, and they are fortunate to have in their row of their 5 houses that were built together pretty much the same. And they're modeling the front after that. In the rear, there was work on the roof that doesn't show when it's not objectionable. The rear was to remove the back wall and make a full height extension. Our policy and the commission's policy has been in general to leave the top 1 or 2 floors. In this case, we recommend the top 2 floors and approving the extension as in the application, but only to the basement and the parlor floor, the floor above the parlor floor. 8 in favor, and Brian was opposed. That's it.
Thanks, Chanel. Is there any discussion? So we have 2 items before us. Katie. Okay, hold on a second,
Can
Katie.
you hear me now?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I just had a question about on the second item in the D, therefore be it resolved. A is approval, B is approval, C is denial, and D is this approval, denial? What do we?
It's a recommendation.
So it's just recommendation.
We do it this way. It was in fact split. The C and D together say that we don't want the one that was submitted and have a recommendation in its place. And this recommendation conforms to our policy and the commission's policy as well.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Okay, Shirley?
Yeah, I'm just curious, Brian, why were you opposed?
Thank you. I felt that the presentation was very compatible and adequate and proportional, and I didn't feel that I could not find any reason to deny.
Thank you.
Okay, not seeing any other discussion. Is there any objection to moving this as the first 2 items in the omnibus vote to occur later? Okay, seeing no objection, we'll move on to the next committee. We have SLA licensing.
Hello, everybody. We had 19 applications, 19 resolutions. Out of those 19 applications, we actually heard 5. The rest were either laid over or withdrawn. I'll go through each one briefly. All the votes were unanimous, and all the resolutions were deny and less, which for those new members mean that through compromise or otherwise, our recommendation is positive for the application as we heard it. So number one is HHLP Union Square. This is a large hotel, really a corporate change. The existing stipulations that have existed there are going to stay the same, just changing one of the entities, one of the many entities that own the hotel on the liquor license. Vote 11-0. Number two is Dahan Hospitality. This is a small little cafe that's opening up on Greenwich Avenue, Cafe Aron, and restaurant wine license stipulations, denying less resolution and unanimous vote. Number three, Josan and Josan Taco Mahal on 7th Avenue South. You folks some may be familiar with this location. It's they sell tacos, or it's really Indian food tacos. And again, it's just a corporate change. One of the owners passed away, and the other owner was basically taking over the entire license and the ownership. Same existing, everything's the same in terms of stipulations, and denying less resolution with unanimous vote. Mishka Soho, 519 Broome Street. This is a new on-premise liquor license to operate a restaurant. There were stipulations agreed to, compromise made, and denying less approval for the license, unanimous. Next one is VSM. I see a typo already. I'm sorry about that. Number 4 there at the end. Therefore, be it resolved should be needs to be changed. So I'm going to change that typo. I just saw it for Mishka Soho. Number 5 is VSM Gourmet LLC, 585 Hudson Street. This is going to be a new grocery store, kind of a different grocery store. They wanted a food court area. Again, compromise to a restaurant wine for the gourmet area, where on the first floor where they're going to be selling beer and wine in a small section of the grocery store. This is the only grocery store we have in our neighborhoods with this kind of license. Again, stipulations were entered into regarding the grocery store, and denying less, unanimous. And again, the rest are all layovers or withdrawals and such. And that's it.
Great, so that's 1 through 5, and then you have 6 through 19. 4 is amended, and therefore be it resolved to correct the name. Does anybody want to discuss any of these items or call out any for discussion? Don't see anybody raising their hands or calling out, so I'm going to propose that we move items 1 through 19 with number 4 amended into the omnibus vote. Is there any objections to doing that? Okay, I don't see any objections. So we're going to move those, and now we're moving on to traffic and transportation. Shirley?
Right, so first of all, I just want to point out our minutes, which are really a summary of a presentation by the Department of Transportation on the Open Streets program, at least up to what they had put together at that point. And then there was a Q&A session, and I would encourage anybody who didn't take a look at it. It will be on the Community Board 2 website as well. And DOT has been in touch since then, and with some answers to questions. They have asked that we don't give all the answers right now because they're still not really done putting all the answers together. But basically, it was a very encouraging response, because the response was, we really want to make this program easy for people, and we really want to help them. And I think that they are putting together motifs, if you will, to be of help in more of a way than it seemed at first. And they have also offered to come to our June Traffic and Transportation Committee meeting to present an update on the program. So I just want to let you know that. Otherwise, we have 2 resolutions, and both of them are in relation to the coronavirus crisis and some relief. The first one is basically to ask for an extension of the bike lane from 8th Street and Greenwich Avenue down to Canal Street. That's the only stretch that really, right now, we don't have. Otherwise, there's more or less a continuous bike lane from way down at Church Street, then it goes to 8th Street, and then starts again at 14th and goes all the way up. It's going all the way up almost, I think, to Central Park at this point. So I'll just, let me tell you, with the 2 resolutions, you'll notice there's one abstention, but that was really because Ed Ma got disconnected and we couldn't get his vote. So we didn't know what to do in this kind of situation, so we did it as an extension. And otherwise, everybody was in favor. So I'll just read you this resolve, which is CB2 requests that DOT install a temporary protected bike lane on the east side of 6th Avenue from Canal Street up to either Dominic Street, Houston Street, or West 3rd Street, at which point the bike lane would continue up the west side of 6th Avenue and connect to the protected bike lane beginning at Greenwich Avenue and 8th Street. So that was one. And the other just had to do with problems that bike riders are having when they try to access the Hudson River Park on the last lag, which is between Washington Street and West Street. And we're just asking for some kind of relief for the bike riders there. So the resolve is that we urge the New York City Department of Transportation to install temporary protective barriers on the bike lane on West Houston Street between Washington and West Street until more permanent safety improvements can be added. And that's it.
Great, thanks, Shirley. Do we have anybody want to discuss either of these resolutions, 1 or 2? I don't see any hands raised. I don't hear anybody. So if there's no objection, we'll move the first and second resolutions from traffic and transportation into the omnibus vote. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the Schools and Education Committee. Janine, you guys had a great meeting this month. Really give you kudos. It was 2 community boards, 6 principals, and really talking about an issue that's important to everyone, who I think in the city as far as is focused on education. So thank you for that great meeting. And I know Patricia and Mar both helped you out a lot with that. So thanks to all 3 of you. I think you're still muted, Janine.
There we go. Yes, big thanks to Patricia, Larry, and Mar Fitzgerald, because we had more than a couple hundred people on the call, and it's just tricky to monitor the microphones and monitor the speakers and the questions and keep it running smoothly. But we passed 2 resolutions, and CB2 is CB Community Board 1 is meeting on Tuesday, and we hope that they're going to be presenting the same resolutions to their board. So our first resolution is in support of funding for middle school after school programs, a critical equity issue. Therefore, be it resolved that Community Board 2 urges the Department of Youth and Community Development to reimburse Sonic expenses for July and August 2020 to ensure that middle school after school providers are able to deliver robust, engaging, and safe programs for the start of the 2020 school year, particularly for working families and our most vulnerable students who rely on free, high-quality after-school programs. And this passed our committee unanimously. Our second resolution is in support of policy and resources to implement remote/hybrid learning 3.0 and opposition to in-school budget cuts. This is a little bit long, but we urge the New York City Department. We therefore be it resolved that Community Board 2 urges the New York City Department of Education to solicit and incorporate feedback beyond its online survey from administrators, teachers, community boards, community education councils, and after-school providers on the safe reopening of schools and delivery of education. 2, urges the DOE to release its policy for remote learning as soon as possible. 3, insist that the DOE implement bold strategies to reduce the digital divide, including ensuring that every student has a remote learning device, including providing laptops with keyboards for middle and high school students, providing access to high-speed broadband, particularly in low-income communities and for students living in transitional housing. C, requiring that plans to reduce the digital divide drive purchasing decisions and not the other way around. And D, partnering with private sector companies, internet providers, and foundations. 4, recommends that the DOE develop a plan for returning to school in fall 2020, either fully or via a hybrid model, and provide clear parameters for more live or synchronous instruction and pre-recorded classes, more small group instruction, and increased feedback between students and teachers. B, teacher training, technology, and time for schools to implement these policies and to increase uniformity of instruction within schools, within grades, and across schools. C, guidelines for delivery of content beyond written material, executive functioning support, and academic intervention and remediation, including best practices for teaching literacy remotely. D, in-school resources to address the significant social, emotional, and trauma needs of students and educators during this pandemic, including at least one social worker for every 100 students. And E, resources to implement social distancing, cleaning, and other safety measures. 5, implores our elected officials to aggressively seek additional funding for our public schools and to limit in-school budget cuts, urging our mayor and the chancellor to not cut fair student funding, critically evaluate all contracts for necessity and value, and apportion greater cuts to contracts. 3, review the central DOE budget to identify spending that can be reduced or eliminated, urging our governor and state legislator to protect education funding from future cuts, fully fund foundation aid, fund revenue bills, and provide additional funding for schools that serve students who are living in transitional housing or classified as high poverty, students with disabilities, and English language learners. And urges our congressional delegates and U.S. senators to provide additional stimulus funding to be dispersed directly to the school districts, including support for H.R. 6563, the Emergency Educational Connections Act of 2020. And this was unanimously passed.
Great, thanks. I see one hand raised. Dr. Smith, did you want to discuss item 1 or 2?
The last one. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Janine, which one was the one where you talked about getting the input from administrators through a survey? And was that item 1, item 2?
This is resolution number 1.
1, okay.
Therefore be it resolved, number 1.
It's number 1.
I'm sorry, resolution 2, therefore be it resolved, number 1.
Okay. My question to you is, as I was listening to the number of people that you're interested in, your resolution is interested in getting feedback from, I did not hear parents, or did I miss it?
You know what? I would take that.
I didn't hear anything about surveys, and just the reason I'm saying it, as you know, I'm doing a lot of work as a volunteer with parents. I've done it for years, and I'm getting a lot of feedback from them. They're having a lot of difficulty. A lot of them had a hard time getting their laptops or their devices. A lot of them don't understand what to do, and they're not getting a lot of clarity from the schools. So I think it's important for us to find out from parents too.
Yeah, you know what? I will take that as a friendly amendment, and that was just an oversight because we had over 200 parents at that meeting, but you know the parents are contacted through these different entities. But I will just add that in there in the laundry list.
I think it's very important because, you know, we have a wide range of parents throughout this district, with some with less problems and difficulties than others. So we like to capture everybody, as many parents as we can, especially those that have reached out to me personally about some of the difficulties experiencing.
Okay. It's
Thank
added.
you.
Okay.
Okay, Georgia, I see you have your hand up.
It's just a comment. I didn't attend the meeting, but it has been the talk of the town and all the PS3, PTA, and other meetings that I've attended since the meeting of the CB2 Schools Committee. So you guys did an excellent job, and the points that were raised and expounded upon at that meeting are things that people are bringing to school principals and elected officials. So really thank you, and I hope there'll be more of these even as the school year opens up in whatever shape or form it takes. Thanks so much.
Great.
Yeah.
Great feedback.
Seconded, yeah.
Great. Thanks, Georgia. And Michael Levine, I see you've got a...
Yes, a great report. Thank you so much. And I heard a lot of good feedback from the meeting, which I did not attend. You mentioned the word synchronous learning, and I've also heard the expression asynchronous. Just for clarity purposes for the resolution, can you define synchronous and asynchronous? What do they mean?
Synchronous, actually, I had a whole paragraph in our last report, but synchronous is live instruction. So I would be like a Zoom class and I would be teaching the class to everyone who's on. Asynchronous is you basically do it in your own time, but it could be a pre-recorded lesson where the teacher records, you know, one of my kids has a picture of the teacher in the corner and the PowerPoint, and it's as if she's teaching it. And that has advantages because you can, oh, I didn't understand that math problem, you can rewind. But it also could be, read this, you know, 4-page article and fill in this form, which is much less engaging. So, you know, there's basically anything other than live instruction is asynchronous.
Good, thank you, excellent.
Great, I don't see any other hands. Is there anybody else who'd like to ask any questions or has any comments on items, resolutions 1 or 2? Okay, so we're gonna move items number 1 with the friendly amendment and resolution number 1 with the friendly amendment and resolution number 2 into the omnibus vote. If there's no objection, I don't see any objection. Okay, so now we have for vote before us this large omnibus compilation of resolutions, which includes the first and second resolution from the Landmarks Committee, includes 19 resolutions from the SLA Committee, including number 4, which was amended, and would therefore be it resolved to correct the name. Traffic and Transportation, there are 2 resolutions, 1 and 2, and Schools and Education, there are 2 resolutions with a friendly amendment to the first resolution. So is there any unwillingness to vote on all those resolutions?
Yeah, just to clarify, the friendly amendment was for the second resolution.
Okay, sorry. So correct that. So the friendly amendment is to the second Schools and Education resolution. Is there any unwillingness to vote on those items? Okay, seeing none, we're going to do a roll call vote. Valerie, whenever you're ready.
Great. All right, for the omnibus vote, Susanna Aaron.
Yes.
Thank you. Akila Akwi.
Yes.
Thank you. William Benesh.
Yes.
Keen Berger. Okay, I'll check back. Carter Booth. Okay, Katie Bordenaro.
Did you hear me?
I did not.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, Anita is away. Amy Brenna.
Yes.
Thank you. Rich Cacapolo.
Yes.
Ritu Chaudhry. Okay, I will check back in with those I did not hear from that I know that are here. Coral Dawson.
Sorry, Valerie, did you get me? Sorry. Apologies.
Okay.
Valerie is Coral. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Ritu, is that a yes, no, or abstain or recusal?
It is a yes.
Thank you. Valerie De La Rosa, yes. John Paul DeVerna.
Yes, John's here. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Doris Deether.
Yes.
Bob Ely.
Yes.
Mara Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Cormac Flynn.
Yes, and I demand Rich Cacapolo's release from that detention room he seems to be being held in.
Noted.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Joe Gallagher.
Yes.
Thanks. Susan Gammy.
Yes.
David Gruber,
Yes.
Wayne Kawadler,
Yes.
Susan Kent,
Yes.
Janine Kiley,
Sorry. Yes. Yes. I muted
Sorry, guys, I can't unmute and take it at the same time. So if you could unmute yourself, please. Thanks. Betty Kubovi Weiss.
Yes.
Thanks. Patricia Lorea.
Yes.
Michael Levine.
Yes.
Janet Liff.
Yes.
Ed Ma. I hear he's on the phone. Ed Ma. Okay. We continue. Matthew Metzger.
Yes.
Thank you. Daniel Miller.
Yes.
Brian Pape.
No on number 2, landmarks. Yes on everything else.
Okay. Donna Raftery.
Yes.
Thank you. Lois Rakoff.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you, Lois. Bo
Okay.
Riccobono.
Yes.
Robin Rothstein.
Yep.
Sandy Russo.
Yes.
Rocio Sands.
No on the 2 landmarks, and everything else, yes.
Okay. Scott Sartiano.
Yes.
Thanks. Shirley Secunda.
Yes.
Okay. Kristen Shea.
Yes.
Frederica Siegel.
Yes.
Thanks. Georgia Silvera Siemens.
Yes.
Dr. Shirley Smith.
Yes, yes, yes. Can you hear me?
Yep, I've got you, Dr. Smith. Thank you.
Okay.
Chenault Spence.
Yes.
Okay. Kathy Sullivan. Kathy Sullivan.
I'm here. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm voting. I'm voting yes, if you can hear me.
I've got you. Thank you. Eugene Yu.
Yes.
Thanks. Susan Wittenberg.
Yes.
Thanks. Anthony Wong
Yes.
and Adam Zeldin.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna go back through. There was people that I know are here. Keen Berger. She's not.
You see me?
Yep, I see you. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Carter. Did we lose him?
Yes. Did you get everybody?
Yeah, I didn't get your vote.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so that is 47 yes with 2 exceptions, 2 no's on landmarks, 1 from Brian Pape and 1 from Rocio Sands.
Brian was only no on number 2, right? And then Rocio was no on both of them. Is that correct?
I had Rocio down as no on number 2. Let me check with her. Rocio?
No on number 2, and the rest, yes.
Okay. So it was number 2. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. We've sped ahead and we got our time under control. Bob was asking me earlier if he thought we would get done much earlier than we did last month. So that's good. So at least we're not too late. Is there any new business? Okay, seeing no new
I just
business.
want to say one thing.
Sure.
I want to point out and say thank you to Cafe Chobani on West Broadway and Prince, because they are the only multinational business that I've observed in our area that has been giving back to the community. And every week, it started 1 day a week on Tuesdays. Now I've noticed it's about 3 days a week. If you walk by their store, they're giving out shopping bags filled with their products to whoever walks by. And when I thanked them today, they said, you know, we're so happy to do this. We have our office in the community. We're part of the community. We care about what's happening. And I just found that really moving. And I felt like they needed to be acknowledged. And I, you know, living in Soho where it's only multinational stores, I haven't seen anything else. And this really stands out to me, particularly right now.
That's cool.
Here,
Yeah,
here.
great. Thanks, Susan. All right. I don't see anybody else with their hands raised, so make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Thanks, Carter.
Second.
Thanks, everybody. And
Thank you.
we will
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
meetings. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Have a great
Everybody.
holiday.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye. Thank you.
Good holiday.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.